when should you start speaking the language you're learning? So this is definitely something I think a lot of people worry about, and I think a lot of people actually put it off way too much. So when I say how long you should wait before you actually start speaking, I basically mean you start learning a language is completely new. How long before you actually try talking to people who are, native speakers, for example? And I think a lot of this comes from fear, and that people think they're going to be judged or teased because they're learning a language and they're obviously not. Sorry, I've got the laptop resting on my knee at the moment, so I apologize if any of this is happening. But they worry because they're not good at it, and they think they're going to be teased, or people are going to judge them and that kind of thing. And generally speaking, this couldn't be further from the truth. So this video is basically me explaining when you should start speaking a language / how. And I'm also going to give a bonus tip at the end about using your speaking skills, and it takes a bit of confidence, but it does pay off. So, first things first, why are you actually afraid? Obviously, we know this kind of stems from fear. There isn't really another reason why people don't want to speak a language they're not particularly good at yet. And it basically comes from, 1, not feeling as if they're good enough, 2, not wanting to be arrogant, and 3, not wanting to embarrass themselves. And I would just say, understand that all of this is just nonsense. Like, that, basically all of that is nonsense. Obviously, if you're talking to someone who's a complete imbecile, it doesn't really matter what their native language is, whether it's English or the language you're learning or whatever. If they treat you like crap, then they're a bad person. It's not specific to the language you're learning. So, I think people think that they need to be some kind of they need to be at some kind of level before they actually try and speak the language. Otherwise, they're going to seem stupid to the native speaker, and that's certainly not true at all. Because anyone with a brain, if you tell them, because presumably they also speak English. If you tell them, look, I'm not very good at speaking this language just yet, they're not going to be like, oh, well, why aren't you good at it when you start speaking? It doesn't make any sense. So, obviously, you're not going to be particularly good at the language you're learning. Just tell the person, if you're talking to someone in public you've never met before, and they mention they're from this country, and it's like, oh, I'm actually learning that language at the moment, I'm not very good at it, and they'll be like, oh, go on, say something, and you can just be like, say, I am, this is my name, or something like this, and then you can laugh and be like, that's probably completely wrong, or something like that, and just make a joke out of it. It's not a huge deal. And so yeah, that's basically not being good enough. You're obviously not going to be good at the language, you're not going to be fluent, but there's not really such thing as good enough. The only way you can not be good enough is if you say oh, I'm so good, and then you speak it and you're terrible, which we'll talk about in the second and third ones. But yeah, that's basically not being good enough. As far as being arrogant goes, you can't be arrogant. If you say you're fluent in Italian, and then they say, come stai, and you can't even answer that, then yeah, that's probably being a bit arrogant. But I think most people are I'm not sure what's the opposite of the word arrogant. Someone commented down below, but yeah, I think most people are the opposite of the word. Imposter syndrome, that's what it is. They don't feel as if they are I swear to God, if someone comes into this room when I've told them not to, they're getting a smack. But yeah, I think people feel as if they aren't even at the level that they actually are within the language. So don't worry about being arrogant. And the third thing is they don't want to embarrass themselves. Guys, embarrassing yourself is pretty funny. If the most confident people and the most happy people are very capable of embarrassing themselves and not caring. They don't care. So if you're talking to someone in public, I had a lady where I work come in recently, and she was from Crimea and spoke Ukrainian and Russian, and I'm learning Russian, so I've just literally from an accent, it's not racist to ask someone where they're from. I just said, oh, you've got a lovely accent. Are you from Eastern Europe or something like that? And she said, yeah, I'm from Crimea. And I said, so obviously I know where Crimea is. If you don't know where the person's from, if they say they're from a city in the country of the language you're learning, you might not know that is a city. So you can just say, where's that? But yeah, I just asked, oh, so you speak Ukrainian, do you speak Russian as well? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm actually learning at the moment. And I said, so you speak Russian in Russian, which was a little bit awkward because she already said she spoke Russian, and I said, tak vy говорите по-русски, which is my terrible Russian accent because I'm still learning and I don't care. That's just the level I'm at the moment. That's completely fine. It doesn't matter how good you are. And yeah, I don't think she was particularly impressed, but who knows? She was an older lady. Maybe she was having a bad day. Maybe she was just a bit scared because I've heard from friends, and I can understand that if you're from a country that's I live in Australia, so if they're from a country that's kind of not really on good terms with the country they're in, they might be a little bit hesitant to, say that they're from that country. So maybe she's just a bit on edge. But I don't care. I literally don't care. I'm only talking about that for this video. I don't think about that. because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I embarrass myself. It doesn't matter if I said it poorly. It doesn't matter if she thinks I'm an idiot. I don't care. I'm actually better at speaking, and I felt happier afterwards because I did the thing that I was scared to do. And there's been times when I've been scared and I didn't do it, and I felt bad, and I felt good after that. So I'm happy about that. So just understand that all of that is complete nonsense, and it's, you know, it's going to take a few attempts. You're going to chicken out of it if you know, meet someone who speaks the language you're learning, but you will feel so much better if you do it. And what's more, native speakers usually love when you attempt to speak their language. Like, imagine you've got like a friend who's trying to speak English or whatever your native language is. Oh, maybe not a friend, maybe like a friend of a friend, someone you don't really know, and they're not particularly good at English because they moved from like an Asian country or whatever. Them trying to speak English, and I don't mean funny in a rude way, but like it's fun, like listening to them like try, and you can be like, oh no, that we say it this way and this way, and like, oh okay, yeah, and you're just helping them. Like, unless you're like a complete dick, like, it's fun helping, like teaching someone. You feel good because you're teaching them. You actually learn things about English because English speakers don't understand how their own language works, particularly in Australia, and it's just fun. Like, when I was in Japan last year, we went on a boat ride, and obviously I don't expect him to speak English because we're in their country, but the boat paddler was next to us and just telling us a bit of stuff, and he said in a, you know, very strong Japanese accent, "Sorry, I don't speak very good English." And we were like, no, like, it's very good, and it was all fine. Like, we helped him a bit. So yeah, it's not a big deal at all. And yeah, most people are delighted. So how to actually start speaking to people. Oh, by the way, the moral of that is that you should start speaking straight away. I just kind of skipped over that. The moral of this video is basically start speaking as soon as possible. If you can speak to a native speaker, great. If you can't, hire one. Maybe don't hire one straight away, just because that actually does take your money. But hire one maybe after a few weeks to months, for example. I actually, I'll be honest and put my hand up, I haven't done that. I haven't hired a Russian teacher. I do know a native speaker, but I also haven't talked to her that much, so I can't really use that as an excuse. So yeah, I will try and do this soon. But yeah, you can also record yourself speaking, you can read aloud, you can freestyle, which is basically you're talking aloud, but you're not actually reading something, you're kind of just talking to yourself. Like, you could say, you know, "Сегодня мой день will хорошо." Like, today my day was good. That's really bad. Someone Russian can critique that in the comments. But yeah, that was just me freestyling. I'm not particularly good at freestyling Russian at the moment. But yeah, speaking is extremely important, and you do need to try and do it more. It's generally the most underdeveloped of the 4 macro skills of language. So like reading, writing, speaking, listening. Speaking is generally what people are worst at. So just try and implement it when you can. I'll give you the bonus tip on the next slide. But yeah, speaking is just a skill that you train like anything else. There's no need to be nervous. And of course you will be nervous. Sorry, what a better thing for me to say would be, it's okay to be nervous, but choose to be confident and do it anyway. And yeah, just focus on growing. You will get better. The worst thing someone can do is literally say, "You effing idiot, you're so terrible at my language, never speak it again." And that's actually kind of funny. I'd actually rather, imagine you're talking to someone and you try speaking the language they learn, and they just snap like that and say, "Don't ever speak to me again," and walk away. That's like the funniest story ever. I'd immediately pull out my phone and put a video on YouTube telling you guys about that. It'd be hilarious. So who cares? It's not a big deal. And the bonus tip I was going to give you is basically to talk to everyone you can when you hear they're from a different country and you speak their language. So if you hear someone speaking in a foreign language or they have an accent, just say they have a lovely accent, ask where they're from. That's like a thing you can say to people, unless you live in a country where people get easily offended, and that's not okay. Sorry, but where I live, that's completely fine. And they'll generally say, "Oh, I'm from this place," and you can say, if it is like, if you hear someone speaking with like a French accent and you're learning French, you can say, "Oh, I'm learning, but I'm really bad at it at the moment," so you'd probably laugh if I tried saying something. And then either they'll try saying something, or they can say, "Oh, you know, tell me," and you just tell them, you try and say something, or you say, "Is this how you say you know, whatever," and you just speak to them and you say the thing. And yeah, you'd be surprised, even if they don't actually, even if you ask them, "Oh, are you from this place?" and they go like, "No, I'm not from Spain, I'm from Portugal," you could be like, "Oh, okay, sorry, I'm learning Spanish at the moment, so I thought you might understand." And they might go, No, even though I'm from Portugal, I know Spanish." And it's like, cool. So yeah, just talk to people. It's completely fine. Nobody gets offended. The worst thing they can do, as I said before, is scream F off and try and slap you or whatever, which would never happen, and it would be pretty funny if it did. I think as you get older, you realise that sometimes just doing things for the story is just kind of funny. So like, the worst thing that can happen is actually the best thing that can happen, and it does take some some balls, some confidence, but most people are delighted. Just pre-plan a few things that you can say. So maybe you're not particularly good at speaking, but you can pre-plan, okay, if I ever need to talk to someone, I can say, where are you from in the country, for example, or you could just basic things like that. And yeah, you will feel great afterwards, and it's good for your social skills, and you've made their week, so it's like a win-win-win-win-win. But yeah, that is basically the video, guys. If you want to check out, I've got some links in the description to my Discord, and maybe a couple of other things. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something. Have a good one.